please join me in welcoming to the stage the CEO, founder, and partner of MSP Sports Capital, Jeff Moorad, and the president of the F1 Miami Grand Prix, Tyler Epp. Jeff and Tyler, come on out. Welcome. All right. So time is tight. This is my sporting event where I need to get all my questions in, and I think they took time off. I'm good. Sorry, we got to go do this fast. I would be remiss, Tyler, if I didn't first talk about the Chiefs winning. You were with them. What was your reaction? What part of their success story are most of us not really aware of?
Well, huge congratulations to Coach Reed and the Hunt family. The dynasty is upon us, and what a great night for football. There's no secret to the success. They keep it simple. They've got great talent in the building on both sides, on the football side and the business side. So it was a lot of fun for our family to watch. I'm a Kansas City kid, so very excited for those guys.
And Jeff, you used to root for the 49ers as a kid, so how did that make you feel?
Well, you did your research.
I sure did.
I did. John Lynch was a client. Tough to see anybody lose that game, but through Tyler, I've become a big Patrick Mahomes fan, so can't say I was disappointed.
All right, I promise we'll get to F1 really quickly, but last question here from the Chiefs. Clark Hunt, who owns the Chiefs and would have been your boss, said last week that he could see private equity ownership as a potential, quote, helpful source of capital for franchises. Reaction, and what did he mean by helpful?
You'd have to ask Clark. I don't speak for him on that point. Look, they're a fantastic family. I think when you think about the ownership groups across football, it's really morphed into two different distinct groups. Kind of the historical families who have held onto their teams for decades, and then the teams that have, a little bit of a different ownership structure, which Jeff can certainly talk more about than I can. But I would be awfully surprised if there's anything in the near term that would break up that family. But there's always generational impulses that require those conversations to happen.
All right, and lastly, ratings came in, and the most watched now American telecast, over 123 million viewers across CBS, Univision, streaming. Is that the kind of audience that F1 aspires to attract here in the U.S., those types of streaming numbers?
Yeah, I think so, but I will say, Jeff's the one who sent me, 3 years ago now, we had a phenomenal end to the Formula One season, and you're actually the one that sent me the screenshot of the audience, and I think it was 118 million people had viewed that last race telecast from Abu Dhabi. So in some ways, and there's nothing to disparage the NFL, or a fantastic group, in some ways the F1 offers a worldwide audience that's not only comparable, but in some ways a bit more diverse and eclectic than the NFL audience.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, I often tell the story that, we have 110 million watch the Super Bowl every year. And what people in the U.S. don't know is that 95 million people on average, watch every F1 race for 23 races. This year, 24. So it's an amazing global audience.
It is global, but I guess just bringing it back to the States here, we talked a lot about Drive to Survive being a big catalyst for how fans really came to embrace F1 here. What other Drive to Survive moments do we need in the U.S. to get to that level?
I'm not sure that the Drive to Survive hasn't done it all by itself. The truth is, Netflix doesn't put out rating information, but what we've heard is that it was the #1 rated show during COVID. And I think that in and of itself began to define a U.S. audience. I once asked someone, what is it about, Drive to Survive? Like, why are young girls and women watching the show? And they said, what, are you kidding me? You have these handsome drivers who pull their shirts off on screen? Well, look, that's only a part of it, but the fact is that they go behind the scenes and show the sport like I think the audience really wants.
How has it changed your investment thesis?
Well, we got lucky. We invested after year 2 of Drive to Survive into McLaren Racing. And I will tell you, I told more than one person in my office more than once, by the way, make sure you watch Drive to Survive. Like, you have to understand the sport from a spectator standpoint. And I think, what it's done is it's, served as a bit of a foundation for a new fan base in the U.S. And going forward, I think that fan base is only going to get bigger. It's getting more widespread, and I think the sport continues to show the kinds of investment qualities that are drawing other people to it as well.
On that point, I do think it's interesting, Hope, because I think Netflix has certainly been a catalyst for the U.S. fan base, the U.S. F1 fan base, to really take hold. But I think it does fall to the promoter level at some point. Those of us we're certainly in Miami, but those of us in Vegas and Austin, and certainly even into Montreal and Mexico City, it's incumbent upon us to create these amazing moments and these amazing events where this young fan base can come together, have these wonderful experiences that they attribute to their fandom for one of Jeff's drivers or his team, and all of a sudden now they have a place to go and express that. I think one thing that's unique about the motorsports group, and it's been this way, and Jeff and I have done motorsports stuff together for decades, has been that motorsports doesn't have a home team, right? You have home markets, and you travel to these markets, and you want to experience what that market has. And look, I would argue from an F1 perspective, there's amazing markets all over the world that when you go, it doesn't feel like you're just at a normal Formula One race. You're in Hungary, or you're in Singapore, or you're in Miami, you're in Montreal, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about what Stefano has done with F1.
One of the things that I know is on everyone's mind is this move that Lewis Hamilton made, or is going to make, joining Ferrari, leaving Mercedes. Give me a business analogy for what the significance of this shakeup is, since people in business like to use sports analogies.
Well, how about this? The market cap of Ferrari went up 8 or 9 billion the day that Lewis's deal was announced. So, a crazy number, but it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing phenomenon. In fact, if you went on the F1 site the day after Lewis signed, I think 5 out of 6 stories were about Lewis. And by the way, that move doesn't happen until 25. So it's a year away. But, it goes to show that the sport has 20 drivers, 20 celebrities as a result, and it's a celebrity-making platform.
Yeah, it's an entertainment analogy, but John Lennon going and singing for the Rolling Stones.
That's a good one. I'm going to use that one. All right, I like that a lot. Thank you. But what does it also tell us about what the teams need to do of the relationship, right? Ferrari clearly dangled a better package. It seemed like there's something to be learned here about retaining somebody like Lewis. What do you guys take away from this?
I'll touch that one since you can't. Look, I think people read into these things, and I think we can all guess what had happened. At the end of the day, we all hear stories within the industry of exactly what happened, Hope. But I would tell you that I've always known Lewis and his team to be very, very savvy and very bright about how he's built his career. And I think part of winning all his championships is picking the right times to make his moves. And whether it's something about the car at Mercedes, or whether it's something what he's seeing coming in Ferrari, or maybe it's just something he's chasing post-driving career 4 or 5 years from now. With respect to my friends in Papaya, who I dearly love and respect, there is something very special about that Ferrari red that is synonymous with F1. And winning in that car is pretty special, even for a guy like Lewis.
Okay, and the rule changes later. Let's talk about Miami's Grand Prix, which is now 2 months away. It's your
76 days for those who are counting.
You definitely have a countdown. What are the lessons that you've learned from the first 2 years?
Well, I think there are a couple things. Look, Stephen Ross and Tom Garfinkel, who have really spearheaded the project as owners of our business, they were very clear with 2 things when we set out to do this. Number one, we wanted to create a venue with world-class racing that would be respected by the most pure race fan. And the second was for every guest and every stakeholder who came onto our circuit and onto our campus during race week, they wanted them to have an experience that they would never forget. I don't know that anything has changed with those 2 goals. Now, what I would tell you is what we've learned is that it is all about collaboration and taking people from all different walks of life, everything from your high-level engineers who are putting things together at the highest levels to run the race cars themselves, everything to the guest experience people who are trying to make sure that to go this way and not that way, and everything in between. So I would tell you we've gotten more efficient, we've gotten more collaborative, but our mission hasn't changed.
The composition of the path, that was a big point of controversy. Those are all fixed. You've changed that. Fixed it.
We're on our way, yes.
And you've also, in a recent podcast, talked about thanking the 10,000 folks that actually put the event on and you're trying to treat them better, in what ways are you treating them better?
Yeah, I don't know that it's. Certainly there was no intent to not take care of our staff in year 1 or 2, right? But I think what you find yourself doing is you find yourself gravitating to the latest problem on a race week. Any event person who is involved in this business, you gravitate towards them, and at times you forget about the people who are closest to you, who are actually the ones actually creating the environment. And so I don't think it's that it wasn't a focus in year 1. I think it's just more of a focus in year 3 to take care of those 10,000 people who are showing up early and staying late to ensure that everybody is safe and having a wonderful experience.
And are there any sorts of sort of contagion of bad press effect? If Las Vegas, for example, there were a lot of fans who were not happy with that experience. How much does that affect the perception of the Miami Grand Prix?
You know, I can't speak to it from a fan perspective. I'll tell you this. I mean, we were in Las Vegas and we experienced it firsthand. I would tell you what they pulled off was a Herculean effort, and what Renee Wilm and Greg Maffei and their team at Liberty Media pulled off. We have total respect for. So certainly, I understand that not everything was perfect in year 1. We can relate to our year 1 experience as well. But I would tell you that, of all the things that didn't go right, they got a lot more right than they got wrong. I don't think there's going to be any negative blowback off of Vegas. We are there in their corner supporting just like they are for us.
Jeff, in the 35 plus years that you've been in various sports industries, you've said that F1 is the most fun for you. You're traveling a lot. How much bigger can F1 actually get? I mean, we talked on the phone before today, and you mentioned the schedule and how intense that is for each of the teams.
Yeah, I think that it may be near capacity in terms of the number of races. Again, not my decision, nor is it a team decision. Truly, that's an F1 decision. But, we see the strain that it puts. Going from 23 to 24 races this year has put a strain on the workforce. I mean, the engineers and the support staff that go to every race. McLaren has a traveling squad of about 80, 85 people that go to every race around the world. And for the first time, we're seeing folks say, can I have a few races off? And we're creating rotating schedules. To Zach Brown's credit, the CEO of McLaren, he's done a great job at keeping his ear to the ground with our employees, the ones that do the traveling. And, I think the schedule is probably close to max. Of course, there are some who talk about an 11th team, dangerous territory, I know, but the fact is, look, at 10 teams with 20 drivers, there's a lot going on that grid and the start of every race.
Tyler, you made a face when he said that's dangerous territory.
No, I just think it's anytime you start to make fundamental changes to the sport, we've been very clear in our position that we are for growth and evolution. We are always in that position. And so anytime you think about an 11th team or a change even to a tire compound or even the new car coming out in 2026, the new regulations, I do think there's always opportunity. Look, I think from our standpoint, our position on these things is always move forward, right? That's how we see it. And that's the future of Formula One. I think the area for us that we see the opportunity in the States is it's the media audience, right? I think as you start to grow, you see that the number of people who are watching around the world that Jeff referenced earlier, the U.S. still has all kinds of growth to get there. And so, again, working collectively across the different stakeholders within the sport, we have to continue to drive that experience on the screen, and nobody's done that better over the last 3 decades in the National Football League.
So should we expect a 4th track in the U.S. in any time that you would put a guess to it?
That's not a me decision. That's an F1 decision. Look, I think our perspective on it is if it's good for the business and it helps us all, great. But if it starts to take away from any of our promoter family, we're going to be against it.
Are you afraid?
And at this point, we have 5 races in North America with Montreal and Mexico City, and then the 3 in the U.S. And I think the sport's done an amazing job growing and shifting venues and race locations, but my guess is they probably stay where they are for a while.
Let's switch gears to sort of the macro really quickly. Jeff, you wrote recently in Sportico that the investment community is only catching up to the opportunity of the professionalized sports industry. What did you mean by that?
So, look, it's taken a while, but I believe that sports has truly become, an asset class and a recognized asset class. I've been beating on the drum for a lot of years, suggesting that was likely to occur. And I think finally, you in the audience probably have a better feel than me, but the fact is that I think that, it's more than just an evolving asset class at this point. We have private equity firms, hedge funds, debt providers across the landscape that are all looking for investments in sports. And in part because LPs are demanding it. In other words, why can't I play in the sports field is a question that I often hear. So I think that as that, truly becomes more the norm and the industry becomes more professionalized from top to bottom, data becomes more critical, metrics are relied on, by the sport operators themselves, I think that the investment community naturally follows.
How does the pipeline to the professional sports industry change with the NCAA now allowing not amateurs anymore, actually allowing college students to be able to monetize their name, image, and likeness? Some people are saying that they'll stay in school longer. So talk about that a little bit, the future.
Well, there's a whole nother audience for boosters today to invest in, if you will. And for the first time, although I'm not a big supporter of it, NILs and the transfer portal have obviously created a brand new reality for college athletics generally. I'm more of a traditionalist. I prefer amateurs playing amateur games in college, but that's not the case anymore. And NILs have created pressure on young athletes to start thinking about how they're going to monetize their athletic experiences even in college. That's a little scary.
And Tyler, just really quickly here, how has the bargaining power shifted between athletes and marketers over the past few years?
I mean, it's changed completely in the sense that, athletes at whatever level have become brands now, and they act much more like properties from a very, very early age. So thinking about it from a Grand Prix perspective, we are constantly in conversations now with brands to associate ourselves with, but all of a sudden now athletes themselves are part of those conversations in a whole new way.
One fun question, and it's the same one. What is the most overused sports analogy in business you would like to retire?
The most overused?
Most overused sports analogy in business. The one that makes you cringe the most.
Show me the money.
Nice one.
Flat-footed.
Yeah, this one's an unpopular, but high ass.
There you go.
All right. Tyler, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, we are going to have a few more conversations. And, of course, we have the reception. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give them a round of applause. And I'll hand this back over to my colleague, Dan. Thank you.